George Russell was left worrying about being hit with a penalty at the Brazilian Grand Prix. George Russell may have retired from the Brazilian Grand Prix to avoid being hit with a penalty for the next race after suffering a mechanical issue which compounded a dreadful weekend for Mercedes. The 25-year-old had his fourth DNF of the season at Interlagos after falling down the order from starting fifth on the grid. And it emerged that an issue with his car forced him to retire the W14 with the threat of picking up a penalty at the Las Vegas Grand Prix hanging over his head. Russell had shown decent pace in the early parts of the race and persistently asked his team if he could be let past Lewis Hamilton, who was struggling for grip after losing a place to Fernando Alonso at the start. But after spending several laps in the DRS zone of his teammate, he was asked to manage his pace. With 16 laps of the race in the history books, Russell was asked to manage his tires in turn 11 and he hit back with a sassy response. "Do you want me to race or concede positions? With more management, I will go backwards." Russell then chased after his teammate but failed to get the move done and eventually dropped off, falling further down the order as Mercedes' poor race pace was exposed. Only when the 25-year-old slipped down to 11th did he come into the pits for a third time. Only on this occasion it was to retire the car on lap 58. It later emerged that the reason given was the high and worsening power unit oil temperature in his engine. And if his power unit had failed, it would have meant Russell would be forced to take a 5-place grid penalty at the next race as he has used up all 4 of his allocated engine parts already this season. In protecting his overheating power unit, Mercedes may have saved Russell from taking an unnecessary grid drop. The Briton was clearly frustrated after the race, although he did not come away empty-handed after finishing 4th in the sprint race and adding 5 points to take his tally to 156. But Russell admitted he was concerned by the massive drop in pace in comparison to Saturday and claimed something didn't add up. "Clearly we got something wrong this weekend. Still we're not too sure what that is as yet, but the pace just hadn't been there," Russell said to Sky Sports F1. "We thought yesterday may have been a one-off, but clearly it wasn't, so we need to regroup and try to understand it. 12 months ago this was our strongest race of the year. 12 months later it's by far our weakest race of the year. So very strange. The car was just slow this weekend. The tires were sliding around and I think what we were doing was the maximum. Something doesn't quite add up. You just don't suddenly lose a second's worth of performance and go from a podium fighting car to just fighting for points. We really need to sit down and understand, but clearly a massive one-off this week." His comments were echoed by his Mercedes boss Toto Wolff, who looked furious with his team's lack of pace and refused to make any excuses, instead sympathizing with his drivers for driving a miserable car. Inexcusable performance. "There's even no words for that," Wolff said. "That car finished second last week and the week before, and whatever we did to it was horrible. Lewis survived out there, but George, I can only feel for the two driving such a miserable thing." With Hamilton finishing 8th, the race result in Brazil means Ferrari have closed the gap in the Constructors' Championship to 20 points after Carlos Sainz came home in 6th to claim 4 more points than Hamilton.